Sports and Songs podcast. Andy, we're in season 3, episode number 35. Today is July 18th. We're in the middle of lots of things happening in the sports world, are we not?
Yes. It's mostly baseball right now. This is one of those beautiful times of year where baseball is the only pro sport. The NBA always does their best to keep their finger in the news, the same with the NFL, and NHL just kind of quietly does some free agent stuff, but it's mostly baseball right now.
Yeah, lots of baseball. So for those following the Major League Baseball All-Star break, they've got this, 4 or 5 days, Monday through Thursday off altogether.
Yep.
as far as games. Now they also have the game, of course, tomorrow night, the All-Star game. Home run hitting contest is tonight. Futures game, I think, was Saturday. There is the MLB Draft going on during all this. And right now, I think they've completed 10 rounds. Is that correct?
I am not watching it, so I couldn't tell you.
They're done. Well, they're done for the day. And last I checked, it was 10 rounds in, and they do 40 rounds. So I believe they're done now. They don't want to overlap with the home run derby, but wasn't Byron Buxton supposed to be in it?
They asked him, and he said no.
That's how it went? Okay, I knew there was something there. I knew that he wasn't in it, and he pulled out perhaps, but he's not in it. He will be starting. It looks like he's batting 6th tomorrow for the American League, playing center field as a starter. Mike Trout couldn't go, but what else do you want to touch on as far as the All-Star festivities?
A lot of guys I've heard are superstitious about the home run derby. You pick up bad habits because it's extended batting practice in a way, because it's your pitching coach lobbing them in.
Yeah.
And you're not just warm-up swings. You are trying for home runs, hence the name home run derby. And I've heard a lot of guys like Justin Morneau that he just didn't get his swing back that second half of the season when he won the home run derby. It sounds weird, but athletes in general, I don't care what sport it is, athletes in general, get a little goofy on these competitions, and just if they're superstitious for staying out of these, I got no problem with that. I think if it was the All-Star game where they did something like this, like at the end of the year, or like the last couple of days of spring training in Florida and Arizona had something like this, you'd see more guys be willing to participate. But you got the bigger name guys that don't want to do it. Some guys like Sterling Marte of the Mets has backed out of the All-Star game this year for reasons. Mike Trout, some guys say, hey, I'm a little banged up, I'm going to step out. I get all that. Just here's my question on that with Mike Trout. He made the All-Star game as a starter. Does he still get his bonus in his contract for making the All-Star game, even though he didn't play?
Well, I believe you do because
he'll still get it. Buxton's going to start, but he wasn't voted in. So does he get his bonus as just making the All-Star game, or as an All-Star game starter?
We should get someone legal on for this as far as the stipulations, and I'm not sure how they're written, but you're right. Buxton did not make the All-Star team. He made it as a backup.
Yep.
He did not make the All-Star team. He's going as a substitute. Yeah, a lot of the bonus players are making bonuses either based on an appearance or making it or
voted in or
separate rate as a backup. Who knows how that would go? Maybe we can get someone to write in and leave a comment about that, because you're right. Trout made it, will not be playing. And if his contract says if he participates in the All-Star game, he gets a bonus, Trout will not be participating, whereas Buxton will be, but Buxton didn't make the All-Star team. So it's a lot of fluff. In the recent years, a lot of pitchers and batters also, a lot of them back out, or if they got a little injury, nagging injury, they're going to use that time to get better. There's a lot of backups announced to make it. But you're right. Home run. Okay, go ahead.
I remember I was saying like the 86-87 seasons, I'm sorry. Roger Clemens' contract was up with the Red Sox. Well, he knew that John McNamara would be the coach for the All-Star game the next year in 87. So whether his contract hangups was his bonus for making the All-Star game, because he knew his manager was going to be the coach. And he knew he was Roger Clemens, he was making it. So I'm sure stuff like that. The wording's going to be catchy in there, and I just love to read some of that just out of curiosity, depending who you are. Okay, no offense. You're Max Kepler of the Twins. You're just happy you get invited. You don't care.
Yeah.
But Mike Trout, Byron Buxton, those guys are going to have did you get voted in? Did you start? Did you get MVP? This and that, Kepler, I don't even think they probably bothered putting that in. And that's no rip on him. That's just not on his radar.
Yeah. For the
I just want to play.
the
Give me
high
X number
profile
of year
guys,
period.
all these little details are put in. You know, all these things come into play. Some guys have, if you play in 100 games this year, you'll get an extra bonus. And teams trying to save money, they'll go up to 99 games and then sit them and then sit them for the 100th. You know, see small things like that come up. But now the batting home run derby is mainly for the fans, right? That's the fans. They sell tickets in the actual stadium. Every seat is filled, and they're expensive. So they're making money huge on this event, and they're bringing in a couple of stars. They don't care really who backs out or who plays or who even wants to do it. The place is sold out. It's the best business model I've ever seen as far as in sports.
It's
unreal.
I remember the first home run derby was the All-Star game here at the Metrodome.
85.
And it was team against team, not bracket style tournament like it is now. You know, and Tom Bernansky won it for the Twins in the bottom of the ninth or whatever that, you know, be. And I bet you the stadium was maybe half full, 3/4 full from what I recall. Then again, I was 15 and didn't care much either.
Now, they're selling out year after year after year.
Oh, yeah. You get more interest in this than the actual game.
One could argue that, yes. And families, you know, dads bring their kids, you know, little league teams go to this event and things. It's a huge thing. And then you want to get those outfield seats is the thing. You know, most people just want to go and watch it because it's your stars. It's the stars hitting, launching moonshots. Now, if you're in the left, right, center field seats, it's really fun. And who knows if they tailgate and party before this thing? I don't know what goes on.
Well, and starting with this year's game, if it's tied after 9 innings, it's a home run derby to decide. 3 innings, each manager picks 3 batters.
I saw that, like a shootout, like a penalty hockey event. So there's some quirks, but they keep tweaking this. It's a successful business model. Like I said, the revenue that comes in, it's huge. It's probably not that spendy to put on. It's broadcast on. It's on television to watch.
I don't know about this year, but for the last few years, Chris Berman from ESPN, that's the only game he'd announce all year. Was just that one.
The back.
Yeah, I like Berman, but boy, that was tough.
And it gets to be long. It's not it's an over 2-hour event, and it's drawn out. Lots of sponsors, a lot of Gatorade prominently shown. All this stuff. So that's the home run derby. It's fine and good. It keeps getting tweaked. Now the futures game, Andy, is a minor league game of the best minor league. It's one game of minors that are really the featured players of the up and coming. Regardless if you're in AAA, AA, High A, Low A, they play a futures game, National League versus American League, and this is really almost the cream of the crop, kind of like the Fall League, where the top. And they still have 8 teams, I think, in the Fall League, but this futures game has gotten more prominent. And you're lucky if you get a player on the team. Now the Twins, I'm going to cover a little bit of the Twins here, Andy, had 2 players in the futures game at Dodger Stadium. One was a starter, one was a reserve. So for those following the up-and-coming Twins players and prospects, Matt Wallner made the starting lineup, hit a 2-run homer in the futures game, and I think he was 1 for 2. Spencer Steer, the third baseman for the Saints, made the team as a backup. He came in. I think he was 0 for 2 in that game, struck out, flew out. But he had 2 players from one team in a futures game where there's only 2 teams playing. So it's the cream of the crop. They've added that as part of it as well. I don't think it's televised though.
It was. I think ESPN might have had it on their app.
So congrats to Matt Wallner, Spencer Steer. Both are in AAA for the Twins organization in the farm system, which means they're just one blip of the radar away from making the big leagues. So those are 2 names to follow in the coming year, not years, but year. Spencer Steer, baseman, Matt Wallner. Now Wallner's the local Forest Lake guy, Mr. Baseball in the state of Minnesota here back a few years. Came up quickly through the ranks. He's a power hitting outfielder. So once again, Twins with outfielders got decisions to make in the future because he just got moved up to AAA. I'm sure he'll be up sometime in 2023 with the Twins. I don't think this year in the September call-ups, but Spencer Steer doing well as well. Now, I didn't watch
Pitcher, maybe you never know. Maybe if it's a pitcher, he might get called up.
Yeah, you never know how that goes, but that's the future. So kudos to the Twins for having 2 players even on that team.
Yeah. And a lot of guys getting called up and down. And again, you look at some past performers on their the Twins game this weekend. They're talking about the futures game. And Justin Morneau was one of the announcers on there. Morneau played in it twice.
He did.
And they laughed at us and go, how can you play in that futures game twice? Because I played it the 1 year. He goes, I got called up next year, sent back down, and got to play in it again.
So yes, very rare because it's like an elite all-star game.
Yeah.
And the fact that you played,
it's not really something you want to do twice.
No.
You know.
And these are guys really expected to make it.
Right.
When you reach this level, this is the elite level of all the minor leagues. And yeah, these are your future NBA, MLB, not only just players, but these should be standout. These should be sluggers, all-stars at the major league levels, what the prediction is.
And you probably didn't see them in the Olympics for the sole fact that you're not going to send the best of the best for the Olympics. You send the really, really good of the really, really good to the Olympics. Okay, and that's just the way it is because contract-wise, these guys have. If you're a AAA stud and you're due to get called up, you're not going. Now, yes, Ryan from Minnesota went. Some players did, but it wasn't our AAA All-Star team that went for the Olympics either. You know. Yeah, the All-Star game festivities, minor league, major leagues are all fun. I just wish it had more skills things for other things like bunting, throwing from the outfield, stuff like that. But
no, let's see. Friday night, I went to the Saints game at CHS Field to see them play, and one of the things I wanted to see was Matt Wallner and Spencer Steer on the field. Wallner just got called up the day before, but they're absent from the lineup because they're being flown out to Dodger Stadium to play in the Futures game. So you didn't get a chance to see it. So the questions that I got at the game is, why is so-and-so playing third? And why is there some random outfielders out there? Well, those other players, so they had to do some jockeying around, but it's still CHS Field. I posted a photo on Facebook. Still one of the best stadiums, I think, in all of minor league baseball. It's just awesome to go there. Now the draft. Do you have updates on the draft?
I have a couple of notes here from the New York Mets point of view.
Go ahead with those.
And from the Gopher point of view too. First of all, we'll start with Gophers. Turn my page here on my notes for my Gopher notes. JP Mossy, I put a thing up on Facebook for him a couple days ago. Pitcher from the U of M was taken in the 7th round, pick number 200 overall by the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was a 4th-year senior, so I'm sure he'll go right into their system. Now, baseball's a lot like hockey, or just because you got drafted by the Pirates does not mean you're going to be there your whole career. Just for example. But with that said, the 2020 first round number 3 pick from the Gophers, Max Meyer, made his debut with the Marlins this weekend. So it's a couple years, and he was already up in the big show. He went off 5 1/3, struck out 5, gave up 5 earned runs for an 8.44 ERA. Gave up 7 hits and a walk. 5 Ks over 5 1/3. Your big league debut against Phillies, not bad. 8.44 ERA, but you're not all going to be the stud when you come up. And got 5 1/3. He had a good round, so good. Congrats to Max. He's up in the majors. I'm pretty sure he'll finish the season there. He wasn't just filling in. The Marlins are filling out their team for next year. We'll see how it goes. And talk about watching the draft. Baltimore Orioles won 11 in a row. The Mariners are in the middle of a 14-game winning streak. Mariners right now, season ended, are in the playoffs.
Wow.
It blew me away when I read that. So,
and they were
the 14
to start the season, then they really fell off. And now they're back in the hunt.
They became the Mariners we've come to know and love over the last few years. And then we'll get on to the Mets here. First round with the 11th pick. Took Kevin Podara, catcher from Georgia Tech, 4th-year sophomore. Because with COVID and being redshirted early on, stuff like that. Here's a quote, and now I'm not picking favorites. I'm just reading what they write. All right, it's just those who know me are gonna think I'm just picking favorites. It's popped out to me. Tim Healy, who's a New York Mets beat writer for Newsday, on Twitter, he put, from an agent who doesn't represent either one of these players. So this is totally independent agent talking about two different players. With Alvarez, who the Mets just called up to their AAA. Francisco Alvarez, he's going to probably be in the majors next year. He's a stud coming up. Francisco Alvarez, remember that name. So this with Alvarez and Pedora, it would be like the Mets having Gary Carter and Mike Piazza on the roster at the same time. So these two kids come up, it could be incredible.
Wow.
For the Mets. So now, assuming they can keep those two, you hear you got two catchers with that type of quality. Is one trade bait now? Is McCann, who's on your major league roster, trade bait for next year? And you read stuff like that, and you watch who players are drafting right now, and you look at the contract Soto turned down with the Washington Senators, and the Mets are one of the teams in that fighting.
Nationals.
For him. Or Nationals, I'm sorry. Nationals. So were they drafting players to trade to the Nationals for Soto? Are they drafting for themselves? Some of these teams went right for your draft, where the best free agents coming up just turned down a contract for buku billions.
I saw that. It's interesting.
And he turned it down. Of course, Mets and Yankees are two of the four teams up for it. Wow. So that's that. But also, another note from the Mets draft, the 7th round, Johanna Tong, he's listed as a high school senior out of Canada. But he also signed to pitch for the Bison this year, NDSU.
Okay.
So now I'm not positive how it goes with baseball. Like with hockey, you can get drafted and still go to college, but you still got the team still has your rights. So he's gonna. I don't know what he's gonna do if he's gonna pitch for the Bison.
Well, Bison's how it goes.
Put it up. Bison are mentioning that our player got drafted, so I'm guessing he's gonna pitch at least a year in college. He's coming out right out of high school.
If they're drafted, here's how I got it. You get 40 rounds. So the teams pick 40 players. You have the rights to them to draft them, whether they want to go play football or do something else. But if they go to college and elect to go to college, they have now forfeited their draft pick.
Okay.
So, like the Tennessee guy, the Stillwater, Gavin.
Yeah.
What's his name? So he got drafted. Drew Gilbert, Tennessee, first round in the Astros. He was drafted by the Twins a couple of years ago, way down in the 20th, 30th round or something. Said, no, I'll go to Tennessee, play for the Vols, and go to the College World Series, and then get drafted number 1. So you're turning that down. Once you elect to go to college or draft, one or the other is now gone.
Well, I know the Mets with that pitcher last year too. He went back to Tennessee.
So you do have now. Then again, of the 40 picks, I think 25 to 30 guys, if you're lucky, are ones you're actually going to sign. The rest will turn down. The rest will say no thanks.
Right.
I wasn't interested in anyway. It's not like you opt into the draft in baseball. They'll draft you. You're not in a player pool of people that have opted in. So you may have no intention of playing baseball, and you still get drafted. So it's interesting, but it's 40 rounds, and they have your rights until you do something with it and you want to go to college and elect to opt out. Then it's just a lost pick. You don't regain that pick next year as a compensatory pick or something. You just lose that spot. So that's why there's so many rounds in baseball that you're picking guys. You're not doing that much homework, I don't believe. At the later rounds, you're just picking guys up.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, unlike hockey, where you can still go to college and you're the rights to that team. Baseball,
yeah, you either opt in or you opt out, and it's a done deal. Some guys who don't even opt out just choose not to sign, or they never respond. They never get back to the agent, and sometimes they'll say we just never heard back from the guy. I guess he's not playing.
So this kid, hypothetically, this guy for the Bison, so say he goes there and plays a year up north in Fargo. Odds are he might be on a short list for the Mets to go, hey, we want to invite you to spring training anyway. Do you think that's kind of what they're doing with this in a way, going, all right, fine, don't sign with us. Play a year in college instead of minor league ball. But maybe come down can they still invite him to spring training? Or does he lose his college status then?
I don't think you can go to spring training if you're enrolled in college.
Okay.
I think. Okay. So if he were to turn down the pick and go to the Bison and pitch them, He can come out, I think, after year 1 or year 3. But if not after year 1, you can't come out after year 2. So,
yeah. Oh, well, there. We learned something new
It's
today.
an interesting – I've just been getting into the last couple of years watching this draft and seeing how guys progress through it and how they get drafted and what they do, because they will sometimes get drafted and say, you know what, I'm going to go to college if it's not the pick that I want. But if I'm a top 5 pick, forget college, because the signing bonus alone is going to be huge. These picks are big.
Right.
Big money the first few rounds.
Oh, yeah. They got a tracker on MLB. If you look at their tracker, it says approximate pick value by them all. Like I'm looking right now, Kevin Pedro's for the Mets. His value is $4.78 million. Jonathan, who I just mentioned from the Bison, $225K. So still, you can turn down $250,000 to go play in college instead.
It helps you way out.
Next year.
And I don't know what the ruling is, but if it's maybe a top 15, if you're drafted in the 15th round, you'll do it. And if it's farther than that, you'll go play college or something. It depends on the situation.
Yep.
But those upper round picks are worth a lot, even if you end up trading them in return for something else, then you already know kind of what the value is of that pick to say, look, I'm going to get a couple guys in return for that guy. And most of those contracts, I believe, are 4 years, Andy. So you get drafted, you play, you work your way up into low A, double A, triple A, and you may not even once again play major league for that team. You'll be traded or be a free agent or something before your contract is up and debut with another team. It's a long process to get there. But if you're very good, a la Max Meyer and guys like right up
in a
couple years,
2 years,
you're there.
But he was a first-round pick, or number 3 overall, so that's a little different story. But still, you never know.
Dave Winfield was drafted by the Padres and called up. I don't think he spent any time in the minors. He was on the starting roster. He was on the big league team the next day.
I know Jim Abbott, when he came out of college, went straight to the majors also.
No minors. So now with all the analytics and the medical, they really baby him along. I don't mean that in a demeaning way, but they really watch everything because there's so much value an asset invested in these guys that they want to make sure everything's right. But it's a fun deal. I like it how it's tied in with this whole All-Star, but it keeps it confusing. There's so many things going on.
Yeah, the way they did it is good to focus on it. I like it being now during this break so you can focus on the draft too. It's not like throwing it over a weekend when they've got other stuff going on.
Now the Twins.
They also,
are you got to go ahead and wrap up with the Mets.
Well, so with the Mets, those are their 2 picks. They've made some other nice picks here, nothing real major. Another second round pick, round 2 seeds, the contemporary picks. They took a guy from Gonzaga College High School, a Nick Mornato outfielder, kind of good on him. He was a high school senior also. They picked some other high school seniors too, it looks here in the draft. But it was either that or a 4th-year senior out of college. So they kind of went both ends of the spectrum here. My say is that when you take a 4th-year college player, he's going to be in the minors for a couple years. They're pretty seasoned already.
Correct.
Depending on your college. But if you're good enough to make it the draft, you were a good enough player. So those guys who you see who are college players, you're going to see them in a couple, 3 years. The guys coming out of high school who do play, who stay with the minors, maybe 4 or 5 years because they got to get that seasoning. They're 18 years old, for God's sake, and you got, unless you're Albert Pujols and you'll play to your 40, you got time, so I think the Mets did a good job with the draft. They did smart things. I think they also drafted for players to trade, not that they're going to trade these guys they drafted, but to replace who they have to trade with the trade deadline coming up. How'd the Twins do in the draft?
Well, the Twins, like I said, 10 guys they picked up. First round was Brooks Lee out of Cal Poly. Brooks Lee, shortstop stud. And he played for his dad, was the head coach manager there, his own dad at Cal Poly. And, he was kind of close to home there. His dad worked there as a high schooler. He was invited to come to some of the practices and work out with these guys as a high school kid. So this guy has got some high-level baseball IQ, does not make many mistakes. He's a shortstop. Twins like to draft shortstops. As I think we've talked about before, And of the first 10 picks, they picked 5 pitchers in the first 10 rounds, 4 shortstops and 1 second baseman and nothing else. All pitchers and middle infielders. And the Twins usually grab up all these shortstops, and as they progress up, you can move them down to a second baseman, move them over to third, move them back to the outfield. But you're getting an athletic baseball, high IQ guy is typically your shortstop anyway. So that's what I've seen them doing. They picked a guy from Notre Dame College, not Notre Dame University, but Notre Dame College out of Ohio.
Notre Dame College.
And the rest, Cal Poly, first round, second round, a pitcher from Alabama. And then after that was Virginia Tech, Texas Tech, Tennessee, Toledo, Western Carolina, UC Santa Barbara, and Texas State. So, and all theirs, Andy, were 3 or 4 year seniors out of college, no high school, and no first year freshman guys. So, and that must be another plan that they had going for their attack for the first 10 picks. Seasoned guys that have been around the block that are going to move quickly through the minors. Pitchers and shortstops. Once again, you stock up on these guys. It's trade bait. If a couple of them develop, you're sitting on a couple shortstops. Any team can use shortstops. Any team can use pitching. You can't be deep enough. So that's what I see the Twins doing the last couple of years, is stocking up on those types of positions. But that's all I've got for that.
Well, you say shortstops. Jacob DeGrom was drafted as a shortstop.
Now
you hear these pitchers. Some of these pitchers are infielders who pitched a little in high school. They played infield in college, and they go back to pitching in the minors for one reason or another.
You never know what stories like that and how they get developed and who's on that, who's in the organization developing them and what happens. Then there's always injuries, Royce Lewis kind of stuff for the Twins too. You get top guy has a major injury twice before even, before making it as an everyday pro. Now, we're at the halfway point, Andy, of the major league season. There's 12 teams with 50 or more wins. Of course, the Mets, Yankees, Dodgers are part of that. Twins snuck in there with 50, but it's a good midway point, is it not?
Yeah. Within a game or two, it was for a couple days last week. We talked about how the Twins division, they're first, and everybody else below them was below 500. There was at one time last week where all 5 teams in the American League East were above 500.
See, that is rare.
Which shows you how we could be the only team above in our division, because now the East is so stacked. I say stacked, that sounds like a bad thing, but they're all doing well. Let's just say it that way. They're all doing well. Even Baltimore was above 500 for a few days.
Baltimore is looking real good.
With their 10, 11 in a row, like I said, Seattle 14 in a row. So Houston, and the thing is, Seattle's got 14 in a row, and they're still like 9 back, because Houston just blew up that lead. The Giants and Padres have it's not going to be a 3-team race like it was last year. It's the Dodgers, and then Giants and Padres are fighting for that wild card, not per se division anymore. So
yeah, it's going to be, because now the All-Star break gets done. We swing into the second half. It's going to be a playoff push, and like you said, trade. It's the big talk's going to be the trade deadline now. Who is going to make that push? Yep. Who's buyers? Who's sellers? What does that look like? What injuries potentially could damage these teams? And for the teams at the second half of the season that are out of it, you're going to be calling up guys from the minors, testing out some things, and giving some guys some chances. And with this new draft, like I said, there's 30 new guys, 25 to 30 new guys injected onto your team. The low minor league guys now have brand new set of threats coming into them. So you got to, it's a dog eat dog system is really what it is. You got to produce, or you're going to be the attrition will drive you right back out, because it's a revolving door in the minors.
Oh yeah. And there's a lot of names that are going to be coming up for trade deadline that, remember, for the Twins for a while, like 2 years in a row, they picked up Jim Dwyer at the trade deadline for a DH. So I thought it was kind of funny how they got the same player 2 years in a row. But that's who you're going to see come up as the trade deadline guys. What was his name? There was a Twins DH last year. They didn't re-sign him to Washington. Nelson Cruz. The Mets have been looking at him. But you're going to see Nelson Cruz will be traded to a contender. Mark my words.
Yes.
Because he's a DH. It's a universal DH. Yeah, we're in first place by putting, player of the night in there at DH. If we get a guy our DH every day,
and
that way our DH has to play the position. In the playoffs, you're screwed. Now you're back to a pitcher batting. But unless you got Ohtani on your team, you're not in good shape this year.
A lot of
so if you have Nelson Cruz your DH all the time, you have another guy on the bench that could come in and play the field.
And the Twins are also known for getting these guys to play multiple positions. Luis Ariz, Polanco, these guys come in and then you can plug and play them. Nick Gordon, as you need as far as depth. So they're very adept at that. That's all I've got for Major League. Before the show ends, I've got some town ball notes.
Yeah, you were talking about that in the pre-show meeting. What do you got?
Town ball notes, we're going to cover Crow River Valley League this year. I'm going to do about 2 minutes here coverage on that because it's interesting. Norwood Young America for the postseason has moved up to Class B. Too many college guys, too many studs there for Young America. They're moving up. They're not going to be in the Region 7C tournament for Crow River. Norwood is a new team this year, but they're still on probation. They're allowed to play for a season, not allowed to make the postseason until they get a year or two under their belt. So there'll be 2 less teams in the playoffs, and 4 teams make it to state. And now you're dealing with 2 less teams. So the Watertown's going to be up there, Waconia, some of these Plato,
Meyer.
But it's always interesting. There's always an upset in the mix. Someone's going to go to not planning on it. So now you get another group of guys in the mix with Carver and Green Isle and Cologne and other mix. Meyer Blazers, who are in that bubble, 500 team, a little bit above 500, had a roster issue this season. The Minnesota State Minnesota Baseball Association caught wind that one of their rostered players gave a home address as Crown College in St. Bonnie. That's a college. That's not a home address. And once again, you're playing there. He's a player for Crown, and they did really well this year. He put his home address there so he could be on that team for mayor as mayor. Well, they said, you're supposed to list your home address, not the college address. So once again, it's a technicality, but the Minnesota State High School League says you can't do that in Class C. You have to put your home address. In Class B, you can put and still be everything okay, hunky-dory if you're a Class B team. Here's what they ruled. They went to the board meeting and they said it is an invalid. I mean, it's the roster, you can't do that. So your option for Meyer Blazers for the postseason is not Class C at all. They've already been eliminated from playing in Class C. They have to move up to Class B because Class B can do that, which is tougher teams. Meyer would lose out in the first round. Yep. They're not going to be able to compete with Class B, and they have to do that for two years in the postseason. Penalized to move up to Class B for 2 years in the postseason. Now, what Meyer's going to do, because they did this in good faith, they said we have a potential problem with our roster. They went to the Crow River Valley League board first. I think before the season even started, they said, we're going to have this guy play for us. Is that okay? Are we going to run into any problems in the future? They said, nope, it's all good. You got our blessing. They sprinkled the holy water and said, you're good to go. Now we've got a conflict because the Minnesota State Board says, no, that's not right. So now Meyer's in a conflict with the Crow River. They're having a special meeting this Wednesday night, Andy, to say, what are we going to do? Because there may be some leniency to say, we'll forfeit the postseason if you allow us to go back to Class C next year and just take this year's postseason off.
Right.
They can't play in the postseason this year regardless in Class C. So what I'm getting at is Norwood's out of the playoffs. Yeah. Young America's moved up to B. Meyer is now out of any scenario of playing in the playoffs for postseason.
So Meyer's fighting for next year.
They got to get something in play for next year because this year's going to be a wash anyway. Once their regular season's done, I think they're done. They're not going to be – once their regular season's done for Meyer, they're done. So they would have been one of those teams in the bubble that could have made a run in the postseason who can't, which means one of these other handful of teams, it's going to be fun to watch is all I'm going to say because there's –
Well, the kid who listed Crown College, what team should he have been eligible to play at? Because you got to be in a certain radius and stuff, like for high school.
For radius, maybe it was St. Bonnie, who's also in the Crow.
Yeah, was somebody else, and I wonder if it was another team in the division or just because no offense, if someone's going to try to pull something cruddy like that, they're going to look at the Watertown, who's the first place team, and make sure all their ducks are in a row. Why would you pick? No offense. Why would you pick on Meyer?
So that's part of it as well, because you may see this kind of shenanigans going on in Class B, where guys and teams are rigging to try to get the alignment that they want to make a push at the state title. Meyer's not in the hunt to make a run for the state title. This player is very good for Crown, but he's not anything that's going to blow away the competition and take them to the next level. So it's an honest mistake is all that it is.
Right.
So the sad thing is that they brought it up to the board first. They approved it. The Minnesota State Board, after the appeal, says, no, you're not. You can't do it. You're SOL. There's nothing we can do.
Yeah, I'd like to know who I'd say who blew the whistle, but that's the term they use nowadays.
So it's an interesting thing. Now, our friend Kip Kovar is going to be covering it. So watch the tweets. He's going to be attending that special meeting Wednesday night. Follow him on Twitter along with the Coal River Valley.
Yeah, he'll be
monitoring that to see what's going to happen with it. But I think in the meantime, the only given that we know now is Meyer will not be in the Region 7C postseason tournament. And of that tournament, 4 teams go to state. And they're out. So their regular season will end, and I think they'll be done. But they'll fine-tune what's really going on behind the scenes Wednesday, because they got to hash it out. It's a very unfortunate thing, but boy, Meyer would have been in that hunt to make a last push to possibly make state. But now I see Carver really coming on. Plato's looking good. Brownton is always a dark horse. We'll have more on that in the next couple of weeks, because all this will be winding up here in July, the next few weeks.
Yep, a lot of teams had their fan appreciation days last couple of weeks and stuff, because the playoffs are starting.
We'll be doing some bonus episodes coming up on Crow River and Town Ball. Myself here in some of these midweek shows coming up, but we'll have more on that. Kip will have more on that on Wednesday.
I got one question for you on that, Dan, and maybe it's something we could look into for next time. I know when teams make the playoffs, you can expand your roster by 3 players from those who didn't advance. Most of the time, it's always pitchers, correct? Or can you take a third baseman?
In the past, your option, I think originally was anybody. In the past, when I was growing up, you had 3 spots, and you can fill them only with pitchers and only catchers. Pitchers and catchers, that was it. Now they've eliminated the catchers. You have to take pitchers. No one else is in the mix.
With that said, let's say, God forbid, Watertown doesn't make it, and someone picks up Pat Cheetah for pitcher. Can he still pinch hit and go play first base later on in the game? Or has he got to pitch only?
I believe they have to. Well, he's on the roster, so that's a good question. They're on the roster as a pitcher.
Right. So if he starts the game as pitcher and another guy comes in, can he go take his left field position?
I don't know for sure. I think they're in as pitchers only to be used either as a starter or bullpen, but I don't think they can pinch run. I don't think they can hit. I don't even think they can make a plate appearance. I could be wrong, but in the past, growing up, we would see those guys come in, and you'd get a big power hitting catcher that may not be a good defensive catcher, but a power hitting guy, bring him in the lineup as a pinch hitter. But now it's pitchers only for the teams that don't make it. And Meyer, in this case, obviously not going to make it. None of their pitchers will even be draftable, I don't think.
Right.
So it'd be different.
We get Kevin
a unique, format as well, because Norwood is not going to be eligible, Young America not eligible, and Meyer uneligible. And the 4 teams that make it will get to draft 3 pitchers from the rest of the pool. And those pitchers have to opt into that pool. You just can't draft them. You got to say, look, I'm going to be available those next 2 weekends. I'm not going on any family vacations. I'm going to put my name in the hat to be drafted. And so it gets to be fun time of the year. That's all I've got for
fun tonight. Yeah, this was basically a baseball-only episode, but that's what we do here. Sometimes, that's the hot topic right now, so that's what we're talking about. I know we're back to our regular schedules now. The holidays are over. Everything else is done. Our early in the week, late in the week episodes, we'll call it for the summer. Sports early in the week, songs end of the week. Catch midweek shows on there. Dan's going to have some stuff. I'm going to be doing some other things on midweek. Trying to work on getting more stuff on Instagram and thinking of maybe even starting a Twitch.
Nice.
We'll see how that goes. I might keep that like only like the wrestling only on Twitch or like new album reviews on Twitch. So it doesn't get too confused. Once I decide how to use that thing, I just figured out how to spell Twitch the other day, so I'm just getting new to it. So
entry level. Well, it's a long summer. Well, we're almost at the dog days of summer here, Andy. We got county fairs coming up, state fair. The next thing you know, it's going to be Labor Day.
Right, and hopefully we'll have all the internet stuff figured out by then.
NFL teams start reporting to training camp. That'll be next.
What did I hear today? It was like 10 weeks before the NFL season starts or something like that.
We'll be hearing a lot on that, I think, next.
We'll NFL will keep their nose in there. They'll keep their nose in the highlights. But that's what we got. We got this. Like, share, subscribe, especially on the YouTube. Need the subscriptions. We appreciate that. The more we get, the more we get the stuff out. We get the wider audience and get more information out to you faster. If you subscribe, you can see it right away.
Awesome. Sounds good. Have a good week.
Talk to you later.